What have you broken in the past? Breakage isn't always bad. In fact, breaking things, including yourself, is completely okay when the experience leads to something better. This is How I Broke That.
Hello, breakers, and welcome to episode number 2 of How I Broke That. The time to break has rolled around again. Episode number 2 is with John Gamba. This breaker has had bigger breaks than most of us have experienced before. That's why we're talking to him. Gamba currently serves in several roles. He's a serial, successful entrepreneur. He's the entrepreneur in residence and director of innovative programs at Penn's Graduate School of Education. And he's the director of the Gamba Family Foundation. John has broken in almost every single space, including the bank, when he sold his first company to Blackboard for an incredible cash deal of $180 million. And he's almost even broken his bond for life. His marriage, though, is unbeatable and is still intact. But you'll learn all about that. So if you're looking for your next big break, John Gamba has plenty of lessons to share. Grab an espresso or a beer. It's time to move forward on your beautifully broken path to success.
Welcome to How I Broke That.
Welcome back to episode 2 of How I Broke That. I'm lucky enough to be joined by John Gamba on How I Broke That. He is mentor number 1 for me. And he's also one of the ultimate breakers that I know, certainly in my life, and that I've got close to me. So I'm grateful to have you on the show, John. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So you and I have been having this conversation for about a year. That's truly how long we've known each other, but it seems like a lifetime. And one of the things that I've always admired about you is that you're really good at helping people break themselves, break yourself, and then also support at the same time, which isn't easy. So talk about the value, please, of breaking.
Well, first of all, before I do, congratulations on this new podcast. It's really awesome.
Thank you.
I want to say this is going to be a very tough act to follow. So I love this book.
Awesome.
This is incredible. So Ariana's segment was fantastic. And as I said, it's going to be a very tough act to follow. But, in our year of working together, there's been a lot of different stories in terms of humility and will and, doing whatever we could to, be focused on the double bottom line of doing good and doing well. But yeah, it's been an unbelievable journey, and when I think about some of the things that I've done in some of the areas where I've succeeded, I'm reminded of the famous quote from Michelangelo, who said, "If you only knew how hard I worked at my craft, you wouldn't be so impressed with the results." I have a different take on it. If you only knew how many times I failed or were broken by this process of entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, you wouldn't be impressed with the occasional success. So I think that really does say it all.
The occasional success, but you hit it big when you hit it. And that's good. So we'll get into that in the second part of the show when we talk about your big exit, which, to be totally honest, in the year that we've known each other, which feels like lifetimes, you haven't talked much about it with me. So I'm excited to hear more about it because that's who you are. You keep that stuff close to the vest, and I appreciate that. Right now, we're going to talk about John Gamba, the breaker, the person. And without kind of doing a whole bio from DC to Philly to Florida to California, give us just a quick who you are and where you've come from as a person.
Yeah, so I grew up in the suburbs of Pennsylvania, in outside of Philadelphia. I went to University of Pennsylvania, and as I majored in American history, And I had a dream coming out of college that I would be a pro bono litigating attorney. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be an advocate of the law and an advocate for clients who couldn't afford representation. And when I got out of college, I actually worked in the public defender's office of Washington, D.C. As a investigator, and quickly learned that I didn't want to be an attorney. That was really hard work. And while it was fulfilling work, and I worked with an incredible public defender, a woman by the name of Gretchen Franklin, I quickly discovered that maybe business was going to be for me. And I started and cut my teeth in business at KPMG, where I was a high-tech consultant. And I had a great partner there who really trained me on the ins and outs of strategic consulting. What is marketing? What is sales? What is a business strategy? How do you put together, milestones, deliverables in a consulting arrangement? And it was part of their commercial space practice. So I was doing a lot of things regarding low Earth orbiting satellites and orbital sciences, and just really into the whole high tech world. This was the early 90s, and was recruited out of there to join a digital agency back when the internet was becoming the internet, which was really interesting. And so we were developing first generation websites for Citibank and Kellogg's and Fox Home Entertainment and a whole host of clients. And really, leaning in on this crazy thing called the World Wide Web. And that brought me to a digital agency in California that we helped take public in 1998, a company called US Interactive. And that was sort of that high flying, the public offering that opened at 23 cents, got to $125, and then went back to 23 cents in like 9 weeks. So it was this up and down roller coaster. And then basically that brought me to an idea that, I didn't really want to work for anyone else. I kind of want to work for myself and build some new businesses in the education space, and started Incubate, which was a virtual incubator of education companies, which I started in 1999, and then just kind of took off with that, having being in a family of educators and wanting to do something to make a mark in the field of education.
John, did you say that you started a virtual incubator in 1999? Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we should pause there,
Okay.
and everybody to recognize that you didn't say, 2020, 1999.
That's right. And there was a hero of mine, a gentleman by the name of Bill Gross, who started the Idea Lab out in California. And he was kind of the pioneer in this idea of venture incubation. And I studied him, and I read about him, and I modeled this incubator after him, which was basically helping to start new ideas, and instead of being paid consulting fees, to take equity in the company, and later, put some financial capital behind some of the companies that I helped start.
So it's all really exciting. Okay, you follow this crisscrossing the United States. There's risk, there's reward, but there's also risk and reward. And so talk about that for people who that seems very attractive, but there's breakage involved in that.
There is. I think that as I was starting that incubator, I had a little bit of a surprise, which is I had a son, and it was, came on fast. And, this was 1998, 1999, and it was a surprise. So I had to quickly balance work and life coming at me at the same time. We've had these conversations where I also felt this enormous pressure to be successful in my professional life, having been the son of a successful business person, and having had parents who my grandparents, who never passed the 8th grade. So, we talk about first generation college students. None of my grandparents, who are immigrants, were able to graduate high school. That's a whole nother incredible story. So this feeling like I had to live up to my father's success, who was an executive at a Fortune 20 company, was there. There was this life coming at me with my son, JJ, who's now 23. There's this sense of, am I going to be a consultant? Am I going to be a litigating pro bono attorney? Am I going to start my own business? How do I do it? So I ended up at that time really, I would say, broken yet excited, leaning on my father as a mentor to help me, start that business and think about what it would take for it to be successful. And he taught me a lot of provided a lot of great advice and mentorship, much of which I still use today in my capacity of as entrepreneur in residence and as a mentor to a lot of ed tech startups in the field of education here in 2021.
John, you're a phenomenal mentor. You're a phenomenal father. I'm sure you're a great son. How are you as a husband?
Well, that was another story in and of itself. So my wife, Melissa, she also came from humble beginnings. In fact, she once shared a story that in growing up in the 70s in rural Virginia, I don't think she would mind me sharing, as somebody who was a card-carrying welfare recipient, would not pull out her welfare card in the line at lunch and would rather be hungry than to reveal that she was, poor. And someone once told her when she's 6, 7, 8 years old, first, second, third grade, that maybe if she worked really hard, she could be a secretary, an administrative assistant. And that really rubbed her the wrong way. And when I met her, she was working in a real estate company and she was kind of aspiring to be a successful professional. But that always kind of was lurking in the back of her mind. Fast forward as she's stuck with me through these crazy up and downs of entrepreneurial life. She woke up one day in I think 2012 or so and said, I'm going to go get my master's degree in ILR, in international labor relations at Cornell University. Got her master's there. Went on and has had a fantastic career as a HR executive in large, medium, and small companies. And then in the pandemic, this is a story. Right before the pandemic, she kind of woke up in the middle of the night. John, it's time. I was like, time for what? It's time for sleeping. And she said, no, I'm going to apply to law school. And she did. And she's now in her third year of law school, taking some midterms and soon to be finals. And by the end of this year, she's going to be the first JD. And she said she'd like to be called Dr. Gamba in the Gamba family. So she's really had an amazing run. She's an amazing wife. But it certainly hasn't been easy. In the early days when I'm feeling the pressure of, work-life balance and saying that I have this dream of being an entrepreneur, sometimes the paychecks aren't always there. Sometimes the life is very difficult. And it was just awesome to be able to lean on her and almost for some sobriety, right? Giving me, the truth about our position and what we needed to do to almost survive back when, it was really hard to be an entrepreneur.
Do you think it was awesome for her?
No, I don't. I'll share a story. So one of the companies that we co-founded back in the Incubate days, that was the name of the incubator, we had raised a little bit of money, and it was the early days of PACE, which we're going to talk about, Partnership for Academic and Community Excellence. And we couldn't afford an office. And Melissa was kind of managing payroll, and we had our meetings in our living room, and we kind of put the checks together for paychecks for everyone, and they were on the in the living room on the mantle, and everybody came. We had our meeting, and everybody kind of got up and left at the end of the meeting, grabbed their paychecks and left. And she was like, where's our paycheck? And I was like, paycheck? We're entrepreneurs here. We work for equity. And she kind of looked me dead in the eye. JJ at this time is 3 or 4 years old. And she said, well, I hope the car takes equity, and I hope the grocery store takes equity, and I hope the doctor takes equity, because we don't have money for groceries, for gas, and for health insurance. And I was in my own world and not really thinking about, the what was in the best interests of our family. And I'll never forget JJ, 3 or 4 years old, kind of tugged on my shirt and he said, well, Dad, I guess it's time for you to get a real job.
That conversation will break you.
Talking about feeling broken. So that was quite a moment. And but I think that's, as entrepreneurs, what we sign up for, right? We have to know how to be resilient and be perseverant and get through those down times and do whatever it takes to be creative and ultimately to succeed. And the team that I had at that time, we pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps, found a way. And I have to say, my wife, Melissa, was really instrumental in that process.
Yeah. I know that I'm supposed to probably do a little more hosting of this show than listening. But, it warms my heart to hear about those stories because, I have similar stories with my wife. We started Flex Academies in the basement of our house in DC. And I'm literally the worst person when it comes to Excel spreadsheets in the world. And she works for Deloitte, so she's one of the best in the world, probably. And
that's good balance.
It is. Well, that's balance, right? So we had to create rosters for Flex, and she made all the rosters. And I remember those days. And I would go print them, and so you have to have that partner to, like you said, support you and break you when it's necessary. So. We didn't even get to touch in the first 15 minutes on triathlons. So I'm going to have to weave that in to our second part here. But right now what we're going to do, John, is we're going to pay some bills. We have a sponsor that you know very well, Click2. So let's hear about Click2. I'm so excited and grateful for our show sponsor, Click2. They have created an effective, easy-to-use, cohort-based course platform for enrichment providers, breaking the self-paced class trend and online learning as we know it. Cohort-based courses offer skill-building knowledge, live instruction, and a community of students to learn alongside of. These features are completely shattering the industry, bringing Click2 and cohort-based courses front and center in the feature of online education and enrichment. Please check out Click2. All right, we're going to roll into our second segment, John. This is more of the business part. We talked a lot about you and the breakage and the life, which is all breakage is all good. Now we're going to get into the big exit. You always call it the big exit. So I figured I got to get you on the show so you start really telling me and the audience about the big exit, which was your big break, which probably had a lot of fucking breakage as well. So start us, please, and me, truly, on pace, your business.
Yeah. So back to Incubate, I'm incubating and accelerating some ed tech education companies. I'm sitting in my office and this guy comes in, and it was a local mortgage broker, successful mortgage broker. Name is Bennett Liss, and comes right in my office and he throws this backpack memo on the table. It's a backpack memo. There's memos that get into the backpack of your child's backpack and serve as communications for school to home communications. And he says,
What
John,
year? What year are we talking about?
This was 1999, 2000, right at the time that I had started Incubate. I heard about you. You're incubating new businesses in the education space. We're going to revolutionize school to home communications. We're going to automate this through an auto dialer. I said, you're crazy. People are already doing that. I said, no, they're not. We're going to create the first and only school to home communications network that allows an administrator to record a personalized voice message and send that out to parents in a moment's notice. Did some research. No one had been doing it. And in 2 years from there, we started the company. We built an incredible technology and we sold no contracts.
Ooh.
Totally broken. Almost, again, ran out of money. Another time where Melissa and I had some really crazy conversations about, what are we trying to do here? And it was at that time that we got really creative and, as I think about it, broke the mold of how you would sell an education or an ed tech product into a K-12 environment, into a school. And that story is also very interesting. So you can imagine 2 years of Pursuit of Happiness. If you ever saw that movie, it was literally like that. I'm going to school in my suit, and I show up at Turtle Rock Elementary School in Irvine, California. And I'm in my suit. I had gotten a referral to meet with this principal, and this is going to be the one, Josh. This is going to be the one. He's going to.
We all remember our first.
Principal Jarl Johnson. Sit down, and next to me, Tommy, never forget him, 4th grader, is in the office. He's got to go see the principal. So I'm in my suit sitting next to Tommy. I've been there.
Yeah.
And he kind of looks at me, and get called into the principal's office, and I give the best presentation ever. Here's PACE, the Partnership for Academic. Here's how you record a message. Isn't it great? And he says, this is great. Unfortunately, I'm firing teachers. I'm cutting budgets. I can't afford it. So it's probably the 150th time, the 150th no. Dejected, I kind of walk out of the office, and there's Tommy, the 4th grader, goes, no sale for you, buddy.
Awesome.
So I walk out, and in front of Turtle Rock Elementary School in Irvine, California, literally 2 years into this journey, no contracts, no revenue, no paychecks, equity sandwiches, I see a bus bench in front of the school, and there's a face on the bus bench, and it says, Neil Klimo sells Irvine. Neil was from Remax Premier Realtor. And I said to myself, I wonder how much Neil pays for that dumb bus bench with his name on it and his ad on it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if I could get Principal Jones here in Turtle Rock Elementary School to accept a corporate sponsorship from Neil Klimo to sponsor the messages so that he doesn't have to pay for it. And as I started doing the analysis, I met with Neil Klimo and I said, hey, what would you pay to have a message sponsored by you that the principal recognizes you as the partner in education for Turtle Rock Elementary School? And I was like, please say $500 because that's how much it costs. And of course, Neil said $5,000. He said, you're telling me I could be recognized by the principal, the most trusted of advisor, trusted of institutions here in Irvine? I said, yeah. So he paid me $5,000. I walked that into the school and I said, now you have the product for free. All you have to do is recognize Neil at the end of the message. This message is brought to you by our partner in education, Neil Klimo of Remax Premier Realty. And he said, done. Everyone won. The principal got a great tool for free. The parents got notifications about their child's education. And Neil got an unbelievable spot, what we called the telephone spot at the end of message. And suddenly, now we're up. Right? Come home. I got, $5,000 realtor check here, a $60,000 check from a mortgage company there, got Nike to participate, and we're sponsoring all the messages. I got $1 million in revenue, like all of a sudden.
So you're breaking the industry, just
we're breaking
check
the industry.
by check.
Yeah. And, you kind of dropped an F-bomb, so I can kind of.
You can.
Not only are we breaking the industry, but suddenly the realtors who are sponsoring schools are breaking the balls of the principals, coming to live events saying, I'm the official sponsor, bad suits, trying to sell real estate services. So what started as $1 million of revenue and kind of catapulted this business into the stratosphere of a new model, a broken model that became sort of the standard, wasn't scalable. We really weren't able to, take this thing from Southern California and scale it, nationwide. So we took another route and we broke it again. And we walked into Sacramento City schools, did an analysis on what their attendance rates were. This was an area that had about 92 or 93% attendance every day across the district. And we asked ourselves, what would happen if we could send an automated daily attendance call that was not sponsored And what would that do to daily attendance? And we did a couple pilots, we did a couple tests, and what we saw immediately there was attendance went from 93% to 95%. All I needed to do was lift it 0.5%, and the product would pay for itself. So in delivering that solution in Sacramento City, they purchased the product. It was my first 6-figure deal. It was a $300,000 annual contract with Sacramento City, where they got attendance, they got outreach calls, and there we were. Now suddenly we're selling it into all schools in California, and we start moving east. Of course, the next broken moment was the 6 o'clock in the morning on September 11th, 2001. And I go to the back end of the PACE solution and start listening to some of the messages that were coming out from our clients that were piloting in New York. And the product was used to let parents know that students were bunkered in the basement of the school. Don't come to the school because it would be more dangerous. We'll send you an all clear call. Suddenly, I had an emergency communications network that was used for weather-related school shootings, crisis response. Now I have an outreach, an attendance, and emergency communications. At that time, we started sending texts and email. So it was a unified messaging system. And, once again, we started going up and was able to sell the company first in 2004 in an all-cash deal, stayed on as the president of the company, and then had a ginormous exit in 2008, humbly sold the company to Blackboard in a $180 million all-cash exit.
I was hoping you were going to explain what ginormous meant, so thank you for using the number.
Yeah.
What's interesting also about that story, I always think, is 9/11 could have broken this country. It didn't. 9/11 could have hurt your business. It didn't. Kind of similar to how the pandemic is providing an opportunity for specifically businesses that we know in the education space to capitalize in a good way, double bottom line. So I always think that portion of that story is impressive. Other points I always love in hearing these stories. We always remember our first. Mine was Danny Vogelman. He gave me my shot. And we always refer to everything as we. You only said I one time there when you talked about Sacramento. It's everything is we. When you were saying we, is it you and Tommy, the little kid? Is it you and Melissa? Who's doing all this?
Well, first of all, we never let a crisis go to waste, right? We're entrepreneurs. We always look at situations and we find a way to get through it and be successful and turn a crisis into an opportunity. That's first. Secondly, I'd say one of the biggest lessons learned in that 2 years of eating equity sandwiches is that I had to surround myself with people who are smarter than me. So it's always we. I had an incredible chief technology officer in Josh Roth, who's now the CTO of Ring.com. I had an incredible director of product in Bing Chen, who's now running his own online learning platform and was one of the architects of ABC Mouse at Age of Learning. So he's done well. I had a creative director in Ward Polis, who's gone on and was one of the co-founders of ZipRecruiter. So none of this ultimate success could have happened without the we. Now, entrepreneurs are in a race to have their face be on the cover of Time magazine like Steve Jobs, but you have to recognize that it takes a village. I also go back to stating that the we is also Melissa and your family, your mentors. For my ultimate mentor was my father. People who will coach you up and support you through thick and thin. And without that, surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you, being supported with people who probably shouldn't support you because of all the downtimes, I think are key ingredients and recipes of success.
Thank you for being one of mine.
You got it.
So let me ask you a question in the PACE story, because there's a lot of ups there. What was the lowest of the low?
the lowest of the low came probably when, a couple of those businesses were,
It's all
at the
good, man.
end.
It's all good.
What?
We got people. It's all
That
good.
was a low.
That's
Uh,
all good. We roll, man. We roll.
I would say that some of the lows is when you're literally onto your next, to your last payroll. And we did that a lot with Pace. We raised money. Should the family go in for more? And the low is when you're at 2:00 in the morning saying, not only can you not pay yourself, but are your partners, are the people that you're surrounding yourself who are smarter than you, going to be there for you and keep going. And you never know. Those were some of the tough times. You also have times also when your personal backers and your supporters, your wife says no mas, and we're not going to do it this way. And oh yes, we are. Remember the good times when we were up? Well, that doesn't matter. We're in a partnership here, and it's going to have to be this way. Those were some low times, and you have to get through that as well.
So we're getting close to the end here, but we've got to talk about mental health, your own health, and how triathlons weave in. And I wasn't sure how we were going to get triathlons into this because I think it's an important part. But as we talk here, I know that your mental health and your own body is something that you treat very well. So, talk about that in terms of, yes, you can be broken, but at the end of the day, you also got to take care of yourself. You've taken care of the people around you. I know you do that, but yourself as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So another lesson learned: surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, but also mind, body, and spirit. I didn't always take care of myself. I would say in my 20s, I was an absolute mess: crazy eating, crazy partying, crazy,
Join the club.
Lifestyle. Right. And I also have some health issues in my family that I knew I had to get a grip on as I got later in life. I'm 51 now, and I was like, I got to take a look at that. I also am an action junkie, right? So at one point, whether it's businesses or whatever that was, I got challenged to run in a 5K race. I thought I'd win. I came in last. It was one of those kind of moments, but I got hooked, and it was part of the action, right? It was part of there was a clock. You had to beat a clock. I wanted to win. A 5K turned into a 10K. A 10K turned into a half marathon. A half marathon turned into a full marathon. Then someone was dumb enough to tell me that I should get into triathlon. I said, I'm not a great swimmer. I tried my first sprint triathlon. One thing led to another. I got hooked on that. I've done 3 Ironman triathlons, 5 half Ironmans, and qualified for the World Championships, for the half Ironman World Championships. And what a thrill. I also like to say the older I get, the better I was. And so I've kind of toned down on a lot of that training and racing. It turned into some training and coaching a physically challenged athlete. I'd say my biggest claim to fame in Ironman triathlon training is I trained and finished an Ironman triathlon with the first double amputee. So that means 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike, and a 26-mile run with a guy who had one leg and one arm. You talk about a hero of mine. All of my shit and all of this is nothing compared to a guy who loses an arm and a leg in a boating accident, goes out and finishes an Ironman triathlon. So that's the story in 2 minutes or less of Ironman training.
Well, you wouldn't be John Gamba if you didn't deflect to somebody else who's done something pretty cool. And that's, the double amputee finishing alongside with you. So, I appreciate you coming on the show every single day. For me and for countless people, you're the ultimate supporter and the ultimate breaker, and I think that you provide a hell of an example for our audience out there of, you can make it, but you got to fucking break it too at times. And that includes yourself and relationships and businesses and industry. So thanks for taking the time.
You want to talk about breaking? You want to go to the ultimate breaking environment? Go to the finish line of an Ironman triathlon, sit there and bang on the boards, and you'll see people who are both broken, but also elated. You see the priest who's lost 100 pounds, who got wrapped up in Iron Man. You see a former woman who's been addicted to drugs or alcohol, who gets her life in order and finishes an Iron Man. And you talk about physically broken, but mentally elated. Those are the stories.
And we've been there. You and I have been there at this point in 1 year, which feels like a lifetime of professional elation and breakage, personal and all that good stuff. And we got tons more. And I hope that everybody out there listens to this and just understands that it's all part of getting to where you want to be in that moment. So thanks for helping me get there,
thanks
John.
for sharing. Thanks a lot for allowing me to share some stories and to be part of the show. It's really awesome.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Next time on How I Broke That.
I'm so excited about our next show. Episode number 3, we interview Delbert McClinton, a man who's actually very near and dear to my heart, and I'll explain why. Delbert is the Grammy-winning blues rock star that most people know and love. Delbert broke the bar band norm by gaining true worldwide fame in his early days, and he demolished racial barriers. He also broke the traditional career path by touring publicly from 1957 to 2018. He had hit singles on the blues and the pops and the country charts along the way. Hear about these breaks and many more on the next episode of How I Broke That.